Navtej Sarna, let's address the India-UK question. And, ahead of the elections, the hope was that we would have tied together the UK-India FTA negotiations that started in January of 2022. 14 rounds have been held so far. What does a Keir Starmer victory mean for the larger India-UK relationship and specifically for the India-UK FTA?
I think all indications are, and I base these indications on the visits by several shadow cabinet members, including the shadow foreign secretary and the likely foreign secretary David Lammy, that they would continue to push the India-UK relationship on the path that it has been set during the Tory years, including the upgrade to the comprehensive strategic partnership in 2021 and the sort of new enthusiasm, new push for the FTA. Obviously, the FTA has slowed down because both countries were going into elections, and now that we have both the governments back or two governments back in power, I think now they will give it a push again. The sticking points will be what they are, market access and mobility and migration and so on, and intercompany transfers and tariffs on particularly important items. So all that will have to be negotiated, but I think the political push will be there because Labour has said that they're looking at a reset, not just towards Europe, but also towards Global South. And Global South will very much include the relationship with India. So I think the old sticking points, the old irritants with Labour and the government of India will probably be put away into on the back burner or put away into cold storage, even better. And the focus will be on the positive aspects of the relationship.
And getting that FTA done. Nigel Fletcher, I want to come back to you. As we just heard there from Keir Starmer, words clearly will not be enough. The voter will need to see demonstrable action now. What do you believe we're going to see Keir Starmer prioritise? There's been a list of deliverables as part of that manifesto, whether it's cutting down the NHS waiting time, scrapping the Raminder scheme, setting up a publicly owned green energy firm, ending the VAT tax break on private schools, more neighbourhood police and so on and so forth. What do you believe Keir Starmer will prioritise in the first few days in office?
Well, I think he's in a very difficult position. As we've heard, the economic situation he's facing is not great. It may be improving, but he's left himself very little room for manoeuvre. And so he can't make very grand gestures of big policies that are going to cost a lot of money. And we've seen over the last sort of months and years him actually scaling down the promises that he's made. He had a huge green energy pledge that he has scrapped before he got to the election. So it's not about spending a huge amount of money. But what I thought was interesting about what he said on the steps of Downing Street just now was talking about trust and people's faith in politicians. And I think what we're going to see from him in the first days and weeks of his premiership is something very simple, which is to reassure people that there are standards of behaviour in government. He's somebody who is clearly a very serious person. In fact, even Rishi Sunak, in his words as he was leaving Downing Street, paid tribute to Keir Starmer as a man of honour, of integrity, and someone that he said he respected. And I think that's something that Starmer is going to want to be very clear about. We've seen many years of behaviour by Boris Johnson and by other ministers that have really tarnished the Conservative reputation because people think that they just haven't been behaving properly. And I think there's going to be a focus on standards of behaviour in public life. And that, above all else, I think is going to be the tone of what he wants to do, rather than sort of some grand pledges and grand spending that he doesn't have the money to do. I think it will be about the character of the government that he's going to try and convey.
Yes, and that will be important to see. But Navtej Sarna, I want to come back to you and talk about what this means as far as global issues are concerned, whether it is the war with Ukraine, dealing with Russia, etc. On foreign policy, do you believe that we're likely to see a continuation, a status quo from the Tories to Labour, or do you believe that we could see a different approach on some of these big global issues?
I think it depends upon the issues. There will be an attempted betterment of relations with Europe. Clearly, I think Labour is committed to having better relations, possibly a security and defence pact with the EU and with Germany and France. Of course, the problem is that there are problems in Europe, both the German and French leaders being on the back foot at the moment. On Ukraine, I think you will not find too much of a difference between what the UK stand has been. They will be committed to working with the United States as much as possible on Ukraine and on Russia. I think on Gaza, Keir Starmer would have a more difficult sort of ground to tread. Labour does rely a lot on, support of Palestine supporters, and therefore it will be a slightly more difficult circle to square for Labour, and let's see where they go. At the same time, he will be committed to keeping up support for Israel, and he will need to handle the protests and activism that from his own supporters that is likely to increase. That now that they are in power. I think with the United States, the traditional partners for Labour have been the Democrats, but now they have tried to keep open the lines with the Republicans, and it will depend upon what happens in the United States. At the same time, it's quite clear that, being a special relationship between US and UK, they would have to sink any differences that they might have and would need to work together.
Raminder Ranger, Nigel Fletcher, Ambassador Navtej Sarna, Richard Heald, appreciate you joining us. It is the start of Starmer's stint at 10 Downing Street. It is not going to be an easy task to turn things around. Many challenges will need to be grappled with as he starts his term, but we will have to wait to see and, of course, report on those developments. But for now, here on the Global Eye, on a day that Keir Starmer has walked into 10 Downing Street, from all of us, goodbye and thanks for watching.